He thought his badge made him untouchable, until he brought the wrong woman to court. The neighborhood was quiet, one of those clean tree-lined streets where porch lights flickered and sprinklers ticked through manicured lawns. It was just past midnight, the hour when everything slows down and most people are already asleep. But not Ava Sinclair. She'd spent the evening at her sister's house, a birthday dinner, too much wine, and even more laughter. Now, she was headed home, alone. Driving her hybrid SUV, windows cracked just enough to let in the cool night air, the low hum of a Coltrane solo filling the silence. She wore a gray hoodie, jeans, hair pulled back in a loose knot. Nothing remarkable, nothing threatening, just a woman on her way home. Until the lights hit her rearview mirror. Red, blue, flashing hard and fast. She glanced up. They were gaining. No siren, just pressure. Ava sighed. Not surprised, not afraid either. She'd been stopped before, many times. Wrong neighborhood, wrong look, wrong time. She slowed, signaled, pulled over beneath a dim street lamp and cut the engine. Hands on. The wheel, eyes forward. The patrol car pulled in behind her, fast, aggressive, tires crunching against the curb. A door slammed, boot steps approached. She caught his reflection in the side mirror. White, mid-40s, heavy build, wide stance, the kind of man who believed authority was earned through intimidation. No greeting, no explanation. License and registration, flat, abrupt, cold. Ava didn't flinch. She reached slowly toward the glove compartment, careful and deliberate. "Was I speeding, officer?" He didn't answer. Just took the documents from her hand like she was a problem, not a person. "You fit the description," he said. "Vehicle matching yours, driving erratically." Her brow furrowed. "I wasn't aware I was being followed." "I'll ask the questions," he snapped. That's when it started to shift. She watched him scan her plates. His flashlight swept. Across the back seat. No probable cause, no visible issue. Just his word against hers. And in his mind, that was enough. "Step out of the car," he said. Ava didn't move. "May I ask why?" His jaw tightened. A pause. "Because I told you to. It was a power play." And she recognized it instantly. He didn't know who she was, didn't care. Ava exhaled slowly. "I'm an attorney," she said calmly. "And unless you're detaining me or placing me under arrest, I'd like to remain in my vehicle." That was the moment. His hand went to his belt. A quick step forward. The voice louder now. "You're refusing to comply? I'm asking for legal justification." A beat of silence. Then he opened her door. "Step out. Now." Her fingers flexed on the steering wheel. This wasn't about the law. This was about control. She stepped out. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. Still calm, still composed. But what he didn't realize was that the moment he touched her, he made the biggest mistake of his life. The precinct was colder than the street, not in temperature, in intent. Fluorescent lights buzzed above her as she was led inside. No explanation, no charges read, just the practiced routine of a system that thought it didn't owe her anything. Ava Sinclair stood tall. She didn't resist, didn't argue. She didn't have to. Behind the front desk, the officers barely looked up. Just another black woman in custody. To them, not a name, not a story. Just a body in the booking queue. Deputy Kyle Mercer handed her off like a package. Still smug. Still sure of himself. As if this night would end the way it always did for men like him. Unquestioned, unchallenged, untouched. They took her fingerprints. Snapped her photo. The camera flash caught the stillness in her eyes. Not fear, not shame, just quiet calculation. She said nothing, and Mercer hated that. He leaned in, too close, voice low. "You're awful quiet now, counselor. Still think you're smarter than the badge?" She turned her head slowly, met his eyes, and gave the smallest smile. "I don't have to think." It wasn't defiance. It was certainty. And it rattled him, more than he'd admit. He scoffed and waved her toward the holding cells. The steel door opened with a groan. The hallway beyond was lined with echoing footsteps and stale air, the kind of silence that had weight, the kind that remembered every injustice ever walked through it. The cell was small, one bench, four walls, flickering light overhead, a metal toilet in the corner. It smelled like every story she'd ever read and every case she'd ever fought. They left her there. She sat, back straight, hands folded, not because she was comfortable, but because she had already decided something hours ago. She would let the system record every detail of its own failure. She would let them document the lie, because Ava Sinclair didn't need to scream to win. She just needed the truth. And she knew, without a doubt, it was already on her side. The hours passed. From her bench in the holding cell, Ava could hear the rhythm of the precinct. The scrape of chairs, the murmur of bored conversation, the sound of power, unbothered. But that was about to change. Footsteps approached. Lighter, quicker than Mercer's. Younger voice, less sure. Sergeant Mercer? A pause. Silence. Then, the voice again, firmer this time. Sir, you need to take this. The junior officer stood just outside Ava's line of sight, clipboard in hand, eyes flicking toward her cell. Then away, nervous. Mercer stepped into view, jaw set, annoyed. What, now? The young officer leaned in, whispered something too low to catch. But Ava didn't need to hear the words. She could see it in Mercer's body. The way his spine stiffened, the way his face twitched like he'd just been slapped. Who called? He snapped. Another whisper. Another shift. Mercer turned slowly, looked toward the cell. Not like a predator anymore. More like a man trying to figure out if the ground beneath him was about to give way. He took a few steps toward her. Slower this time, measured. Who are you? Ava lifted her gaze. Calm, controlled. You didn't ask before. He narrowed. His eyes. Some lawyer calls and suddenly I'm getting questions from the DA's office? Internal affairs? What the hell did you do? She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on her knees. No trace of fear. No raised voice. Just precision. I didn't do anything. But people talk. And some of us... She paused, letting the silence stretch. Have friends in very high places. Mercer's face darkened. His breath hitched. That was the moment. The one where he realized he'd made a mistake he couldn't walk back. He turned on his heel, muttering something under his breath. Something clipped and angry. His boots echoed louder than before. Not confident. Not authoritative. Just loud. He stormed down the hallway and vanished from sight. Ava leaned back against the cold wall, exhaled. The tide had turned, and Mercer was about to find out what accountability really felt like. Morning came like a blade, clean, bright, and cold. The courthouse smelled like old wood and paper. Polished floors, white walls, heavy silence. It wasn't built to feel welcoming. It was built to command control. Ava Sinclair walked in without hesitation. No cuffs, no cell, no shame. She wore a deep navy suit, simple, sharp, no flash, no distractions. Just presence. One that couldn't be denied. She moved like someone who belonged there. Not because she was allowed in, but because she had earned it. At the defendant's table, her attorney, Malik Ortega, flipped through notes. With the quiet precision of a man already 10 moves ahead. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Then the courtroom doors creaked open again. Deputy Kyle Mercer stepped in. His uniform was crisp, his posture stiff. But something in his stride had changed. He still tried to project dominance. Chin up, shoulders wide, but it didn't land the way it used to. His eyes met Ava's. She didn't look away. He did. A moment later, the judge entered. Judge Eliza Rowe, 60s, silver hair. Her expression was the same one she gave to liars and time-wasters. Unimpressed? Unmoved? She adjusted her glasses and looked over the docket. Let's get to it. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, we have new evidence that the defendant, Ava Sinclair, was unlawfully detained by Deputy Mercer without cause. Furthermore, we now have reason to believe this was not an isolated incident. Mercer shifted. In his seat, eyes flicking toward the judge, his confidence began to fray. The prosecutor continued. Lieutenant Sinclair, he paused, letting the rank land. is a decorated civil rights attorney, graduate of Harvard Law, and has successfully litigated multiple cases against law enforcement agencies for racially biased practices. She is known, specifically known, for exposing patterns of abuse. That got the room's attention, a murmur, a flicker of recognition. Mercer's jaw clenched. The prosecutor turned to him directly. And yet, Deputy Mercer claims that Ms. Sinclair was arrested for being uncooperative during a routine stop. He lifted a file and laid it gently on the judge's bench. But the dash cam and body cam footage tells a different story. The judge nodded once. Let's see it. A screen was rolled out. The footage began. Ava sat still. She didn't need to watch. She remembered every second. Mercer's voice echoed through the courtroom, demanding, sharp, without cause, her calm responses, her repeated lawful questions, his escalation, his disregard, the moment he yanked her wrists, the smirk, the cuffs, silence, fell as the video ended. Then the judge leaned forward. Deputy Mercer, she said slowly, you failed to provide probable cause, you escalated unnecessarily, you violated department protocol, and your initial report omitted key details, including the fact that the defendant was fully compliant. Mercer opened his mouth. The judge raised a hand. The charges against Ms. Sinclair are dismissed immediately. The gavel cracked like thunder, and I am requesting a formal investigation into Deputy Mercer's conduct, past and present. The air shifted. The courtroom murmured louder now. Whispers behind hands, heads turning. Mercer sat there, flushed, rigid, exposed. His badge didn't protect him now. Ava stood slowly, gathered her files, didn't gloat, didn't smile. She didn't need to, because this part was just the beginning. The courthouse hallway was silent, too silent. Kyle Mercer walked fast, but not with confidence. More like a man trying to outrun something that was already inside the room with him, his fists clenched at his sides, his jaw tight, the courtroom whispers still echoing in his ears. Ava Sinclair's name now held weight, not just in the news but in the air, and for the first time in his career the eyes on him weren't admiring. They were watching, judging, documenting. He passed two officers near the lobby, both quieted as he approached. Didn't look at him, didn't salute, just watched him walk by. Then a voice cut through the tension like a blade. Sergeant Mercer. He stopped. Chief Eldon Carter stood just ahead. Old school, decorated, respected. 30 years in the department and not a word wasted. His arms were crossed, his face unreadable. Mercer straightened. Chief. Carter didn't respond. Just motioned toward a door. Private office. Closed blinds. No press. No backup. No shield. Inside, the chief didn't sit. He just stood behind the desk and let the silence work. Then, what the hell were you thinking? Mercer tried to speak. I was following protocol. Stop! The word landed harder than a shout. Carter tossed a thick file onto the desk. That's your arrest history. 5 years. You want to guess how many traffic stops were black drivers? Mercer said nothing. You didn't even know who you arrested. That's bad. But what's worse is that you didn't care. She was disrespectful. She questioned me. Carter leaned in, voice low. Cold. That's not a crime. Mercer looked away. His voice cracked. You don't get it. People like that? People like what? The chief snapped. The room went still. Mercer didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence said it all. The chief shook his head. Internal. Affairs is already reviewing your cases. You've been flagged for profiling. And the DA's office? They want everything. Every report, every body cam clip, every piece of your record. Mercer swallowed hard. So what now? Now, Carter said, stepping back. You're suspended. Effective immediately. Badge, weapon, desk, all of it. Mercer's breath hitched. You're throwing me under the bus? The chief's voice was ice. No, you drove yourself here. Now get out. The weight of the door closing behind him felt like a final verdict. For the first time, Kyle Mercer understood what it meant to be powerless. Not because someone took his badge, but because he finally had to face what he'd done with it. Across town. The world moved on. But for Ava Sinclair, something had shifted. She sat in a small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a barber shop. One of those places that always smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso. Rain tapped against the windows in soft rhythms. Her phone buzzed on the table, but she let it ring once, then twice. Only when it lit up with a name she recognized did she answer. Her attorney's voice came through, calm and crisp. "He's been suspended. No preamble, no build-up, just fact." Ava stirred her coffee slowly. "And?" "Internal Affairs is opening. A full investigation. Might be criminal charges. They're reviewing every case he touched for the last 5 years." A beat of silence. "You were the wrong woman to mess with." Ava took a slow sip. Didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. She'd never needed revenge. She just wanted accountability. She glanced out the window as the city rolled by. Cars, buses, kids in raincoats splashing through puddles. The world didn't stop when injustice happened. It just kept moving. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She considered ignoring it, then answered. A familiar voice greeted her on the other end. "Lieutenant Sinclair." She recognized the tone. Calm, measured, military. "I assume you've seen the news?" "I have." "And how are you feeling?" Ava looked at her reflection in the cafe window. She saw strength. She saw clarity. "Like I did exactly what I was supposed to do." The voice on the line softened. "Good. The Department of Defense is watching this closely. And there's talk. About you. About what you did." She closed her eyes for a moment. "I'm not interested in being a headline." "Too late," the voice said. "You already are." A pause. "They might ask you to speak publicly. It's bigger than you now." And she knew that. She had always known. This wasn't just about one bad officer or one bad night. It was about a system that had been allowed to breathe unchecked for too long. And all the people who didn't have her rank, her law degree, her platform, people who never made it to court, never made it home. She leaned back in her chair, exhaled slowly. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened," she said. "And it won't be the last?" "No," the voice agreed. "But it's the first time he's facing consequences. Because you didn't back down." She hung up after that. No need for more words. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky still gray but clearing. Across the street, a young boy held his mother's hand, skipping over puddles, laughing about something only he found funny. Ava watched him for a moment. That joy, that innocence, that possibility. And then she stood, gathered her coat, tucked her phone into her pocket. She didn't walk away like someone who had survived. She walked like someone who had decided to fight back. Because the truth was simple. This fight had never been just hers. And now, it never would be again. Power unchecked is power abused, and too often it hides behind a badge, a desk, a system designed to protect itself before it protects the people. What happened to Ava Sinclair wasn't rare. It wasn't unusual. It wasn't even surprising. It was ordinary. And that's the problem. Because every day across this country, people are pulled over, silenced, arrested, not for what they've done, but for who they are, where they are, how they speak, what they look like. Ava had the knowledge, the rank, the voice. She knew how to navigate the system and how to make it answer for its own failures. But what if she hadn't? What if she didn't have the education, didn't know her rights, didn't have the calm to survive that night? That's why this matters. Not because she won, but because so many others never even get the chance to fight. If this story made you angry, good. If it made you uncomfortable, that's okay. Let it. Because that discomfort, that's where change starts. Talk about it. Share it. Challenge the silence that protects abuse. Because justice doesn't begin in the courtroom. It begins with conversation, with courage, with refusing to look away. Change doesn't come easy, but it comes. And it starts with people who refuse to back down, just like she did.